Hey everybody, I'm Tommy and you're on the lifeboat. What's happening? It's been a minute. Maxie, good to see you. Krista Melinda, Lisa Trimble. What's up, Lisa Trimble? Good to see you. So this is an update on the Derek Lee Cardello-Smith story that I did a couple of shows on last week. This is the guy, if you've not watched, who sued Diddy for $100 million, got a default judgment about 7 or 8 months ago. After the default judgment, Diddy's crew came in, his team came in as high dollar lawyers and got it overturned. That happens all the time. Turns out that it looks like, if you do the research, Derek Lee Cardello-Smith kind of conned him on the signature. And the more that you research the guy, and Rosalind Duke is a content creator. She is the woman that was on with the DUI attorney the day that they talked about this, and she's done some really great research on this subject. And what you find is that when you start looking at the stamps that this guy has used for the notary public, the way that they're in there, the way that they're angled, it looks as if he got one done as a template and has changed out dates. There's also many cases where he has filed lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions claiming that what happened to him happened in, as an example, pick any big city, right? Like New York, right? He says it happens in Manhattan, and then he says it happens in Brooklyn, and then he says it happens in Queens, and then he says it because he's trying to get this in front of as many eyes as possible. This is my theory. Is the guy a con man? Yeah, he is. He's definitely a con man. He's conning all kinds of stuff. Now, so I don't know if these affidavits are fake. I don't know if any of these people have actually recanted their stories. And it's really hard to find because a lot of these people seem to be poofed, kind of. And I don't mean poof as in they never existed. I mean poof as in they used to have jobs, but they're really hard to track down, as in impossible almost to track down. So I've been doing more research, and I'm not a journalist. I'm a hack. I'm a guy that comes on here and talks, but there are things that you can get passionate about. Is this guy a con man? He is, man. He's filed hundreds and hundreds of. It's astounding how prolific this dude is. And there's a bunch of con going on. There's all kinds of paper cons going on with this guy. But the question in my mind is this, because Rosalind Duke, right, this researcher, found a piece of paper that is in his file that followed him after his conviction, and it was written by a cop. You can go and see it. It's on one of the last videos she did on this subject. And she's very even-handed. She'll give you, both sides of the story. But the research that she did on this is pretty fascinating because this letter that follows him into the prison system says he's not a sex offender. He's never offended anyway. That crime, those didn't happen. This was written by a cop and put in his file. Why the hell is that in the file of a guy that has been convicted for so many different counts of 3 different victims? That would not be in the file, and it seems odd. And there's a bunch of weird stuff about this. For instance, kidnapping is a federal offense. Normally, one goes to federal prison for kidnapping. Now, apparently, or allegedly, I don't know what you want to say, but apparently he's been charged in the feds. Now, in my career, every time I've seen somebody that caught a 5-year sentence in the feds, and then a 10-year sentence in the state, or a 10-year sentence in the state, and a 5-year sentence in the feds, because very often you might break, state and federal laws. The feds, in my experience, get theirs first. Normally the feds are not cool with you going to clean up your state bit and then come on out to the feds. Now the feds want theirs first. You come out and you do your time in the feds, and then we'll figure it out after that. But no, I've never seen that. That's odd. And there's so many things that keep stacking up that's odd. That's odd. That's odd. And so I start thinking, and if I'm locked up in prison for crimes that I didn't commit, it's like trying to put a letter in a bottle, right? You know how you stick a note in a bottle and you cork it, you throw it off a boat, right? Or you throw it in the ocean or whatever. Okay, but he's in a pond. if what this guy is alleging is true. And it very well may all be BS. The guy's a con man. I feel his pain. Right? If you've done some things that cause people to question, then for the rest of your life, you're going to have to deal with that. That's part of life. But if you had to get a message in a bottle outside of your pond, what do? And what I mean by that is you're going to file your appeal to a judge that allegedly has already been paid off. There's a judge that is allegedly throwing out everything that you file into the trash can summarily. Just boom, 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 gone all the way down the line. So you're appealing a case. And if we believe Cardello-Smith, and let's just believe him for a second because it makes this line of thought make more sense. But if we believe Cardello-Smith, the cop that busted him got paid $130,000. The assistant prosecutor got paid. That's the one that actually prosecuted him. The head prosecutor got paid and is working directly for Sean Combs. If what he alleges is all true. If that's the case, then anything that you put in a bottle with a cork on it, they're going to smash. So you got to try to get your message in a bottle outside of the pond that you're in. Now, he got in there and he got him a paralegal certificate, right? Now, some of the people who want to debunk this will debunk it by saying, that everything is done on a typewriter. I assure you that you don't have access to anything in federal prison to do legal work on other than that. There are some guys that are kind of slick and they will email things to people on the street. That way they can use spell check and things like that. And then what they'll do is they'll try to go down to down to education and then use the printer to print off whatever they wrote so that it looks a little bit more professional. It doesn't look like it was done on a typewriter. But if you're cranking them out, and I would imagine that just from the look of all of the different things that this guy has filed, Derek Lee Cardello-Smith gets up in the morning, starts filing, and he doesn't stop filing until he goes to bed at night. And I knew cats like that in the feds. And there were people that were doing it because that's just how they do their time. But Derek Lee Cardello-Smith killed somebody. And he didn't get charged with it. That's weird, folks. Allegedly, it's on film. And then I read the report of the person that he killed in self-defense. He was attacked by 3 people. Those 3 people were yelling racist stuff about him. And they brought up O.J. Simpson and how he killed the white woman because Derek Lee Cardello-Smith was with a white woman that night. And these people started to yell racial slurs and taunts. And they wrote this up, that the 24-year-old Derek Lee Cardello-Smith, they put a special circumstance on it. They said that he was professionally trained. Basically, he was a killer with his bare hands. And this is just a BS. I mean, they do this with Navy SEALs. They do this with guys who literally have been trained to kill you. People that have been trained to rub you out. Okay? I don't think that was Derek Lee Cardello-Smith. But they had to do something because this is textbook manslaughter. And that's not what they wanted to go for. But then they just stopped. He's not in prison for it. It's not charged with it. It's not convicted for it. Nothing. Now, if you're sitting around and going, why do you drop a murder charge if you've got dead to rights? And according to what they wrote up, they even had the conversation that was going on while he was sitting there talking about how now you're going to die in a parking lot with your knife, with your own knife in your chest because you're a racist piece of crap. I want to tell you something. Those things happen in movies. Ain't nobody talking to people like that. That's BS. 3 people attack you and you got to get a knife away from one of them. There's no dialogue. Okay? I promise, man. I promise. And anyone that's seen stuff like that go on, anybody that's been around bad people, when the adrenaline gets rushing, no one's dropping lines like Schwarzenegger. But that's how they wrote it up. It was ridiculous. I read it to like 4 guys I know and just said, anything stick out as weird to you in this? And I read the whole thing and the guy's like, holy hell, who wrote that? Right? The dialogue's fantastic. I bet you my life it never happened, but it's pretty fantastic. But you drop all of the charges. Now here's my thing. You know why people tend to do stuff like that? If they know that once you start diving into this, you're going to realize that the guy that got whacked, how this guy might have decided to do that evening. In other words, they were afraid since the hit didn't go well, that if they started investigating this crap and they started talking to the other two guys, one of them might just roll. One of them might just say, hey, you know what? I owed the state a 15-year sentence. And they came to me and said, yeah, we'll clean this up if you go and attack this guy, Derek Lee Cardello-Smith. Right? Now, it's one thing if you're going to go and take care of a job to get out of trouble. You're probably a career criminal if you're agreeing to kill somebody anyway, right? It's murder for hire. You got to be a badass or a sick bastard. But to just drop it? Hey, it's all good. You can go. Also, the dates of when these crimes took place and when he started his prison sentence don't make sense. There's so much about this that does not make sense. Now, is he a con man? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that narrative is going to make this very hard for Derek Lee Cardello-Smith because no one is going to believe him. Because he's done a lot of things to get attention, right? The $100 million lawsuit, I assume, was a message in a bottle more than it was anything else. But here's the other one that really disturbs me. Gene Deal, right? Allegedly, Diddy's bodyguard, Gene Deal, alleges that he made a trip out to Michigan to see this dude, right? Diddy and his team went out there and offered this guy money. You don't offer money to someone you've never met. Right? That's not something that happens. So we live in an odd world where two things could actually be taking place. This man may have a history of doing some things that paint him to be a con man. That does not necessarily mean that he did not give Sean Combs $150,000 and that the people in that prosecutor's office have not framed 128 black men and had them incarcerated because they had the misfortune of investing in Bad Boy Records. This isn't one that's going to be easy to figure out. So when you're not seeing me here, it's because I'm going to be working on this one. I might go to Michigan. This one's sticking in my it's sticking in my craw a little bit. Maybe it's, I don't know. But there's just too much smoke on this case for there not to be fire. I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense. What kind of cop writes a letter to an inmate's file that says, this sex offender we're sending up here is not a sex offender? Now, I know that there are convicts that are going to hear this who are going to go, come on, Tommy, they were trying to get him killed. They were trying to get the PC designation taken off of them, protective custody. If you're a rapist or you're a child molester and you go up to a prison, they're going to put you into protective custody. Usually, I would imagine whether you want to or not, right? I know that that there are people that have refused, like Whitey Bulger refused. That, he decided he was going to walk a yard. He refused protective custody. You can do that. He walked to his death. Whole bunch of stories about that too. Right, he was trying to protect his family or do whatever. Valerie, good to see you. How are you? AVAC, what's happening? Did I see the Arabian Bard? Arwa, good to see you. Jeremy Fowler, what's happening? Good to see you, brother. Cindy G, glad you're here. Hey, so there's a lot here that doesn't make any sense. And maybe they were trying to get the protective custody designation removed off of him. But if a guy shows up on a yard, you still have to walk out the door, right? When you show up, and they say, all right, everybody, get your bedroll. We're all going out. If that person looks at the cop and says, I'm not going out there, they take him to the shoe. It's called checking in. So even if this was a paperwork thing, because someone's going to say that, I promise. My head went there. I thought maybe they're just trying to make it look like he could be put in general population so that they'll take a guy with 6 rape charges and put him in general population. Of course, maybe that won't be such a big deal because he's a killer. Right? This guy's a Navy SEAL. He's not, but they sure as hell turned him into one. Special circumstances, you understand? In the crime world, you need that thing, right? When they're prosecuting you, you need something to take a regular, hey, I defended myself because this guy called me the N-word and tried to attack me with his 2 friends while I was walking with my girlfriend, right? That's usually self-defense. It's pretty cut and dry. It's not going to elevate itself to a different class of crime. You understand that if somebody starts to get into a fist fight, and that fist fight elevates, and shit gets bad, and somebody pulls a knife or whatever, this usually falls into a category we call manslaughter. The person didn't get up that morning and go, I'm going to go kill me a white guy. He was walking down the street with his girlfriend, minding his own business. The guy comes by and starts yelling the N-word at him and heckling his girlfriend and allegedly put hands on the girl. Well, I can't really fault Derek Lee Cardello-Smith for whatever he did in that parking lot, and I can't really have too much sympathy for the guy that he ended up taking off of planet Earth. But it stinks. It doesn't smell right. It doesn't smell right at all. Honestly. I bet they'd like that to go away. What made Derek Lee Cardello-Smith at the age of 24 a stone cold killer? Huh? What made this guy Jason Bourne? Because honestly, I mean, I've seen guys, hey, monk, 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 monk. I've seen guys that had some pretty vicious prison jackets, right? You know, we knew a dude named Skinny. I hope he sees this someday. I knew a dude named Skinny who, shockingly, was in prison for the distribution of methamphetamine. But Skinny had like 130 institutional stabbings, right? Like, this dude's been sticking people for decades on end. But they were never calling this guy Jason Bourne. They were never trying to give this guy an enhancement because he was a stone cold killer. It looks to me like they've tried to work this guy at every single turn. Now, why is he doing what he's doing? Is this a con because he's trying to get paid? Or is he trying to scream to the world, somebody look at this case? Somebody please take a look at me because I'm doing 75 years. And I'll tell you something. Here's something else that when you start filing paperwork on prisons, right? You do that et al. You're signing. You're suing everybody. So I get knocked down a flight of stairs by a very rotund guy behind me who's handcuffed. I shouldn't be on stairs handcuffed. Right? We're supposed to go in elevators, but it's a hell of a lot faster to take us down the stairs when we're in the shoe. So I'm not even supposed to leave the floor I'm on. I should shower on the 3rd floor. They're going to take me down to the 1st floor because it's a lot quicker, and they're using a stairway that's supposed to actually be like an emergency exit. So instead of there being 7 or 8 stairs and a turn and a little flat area, it's just one little big long ass stairway. And this guy falls into me. Now, the cop who's holding my arm to walk me down the stairs isn't holding my arm very tightly, and this guy rides me like a toboggan, all 290 pounds of him, down about 30 stairs and into a wall. At the time, I was married to an attorney, and I wanted to get paid on that. I got hurt, right? Badly. Bruises, the whole nine. And my face was all jacked up. They made me buy my own pain medication at the store. I had to buy my own Advil. They wouldn't even give me Advil, which was astounding. But once you start filing paperwork and you list the cop that was holding your hand, the shift supervisor that was on that day, the captain whose job it was to run the entire yard that day, you go all the way up the line until you get to the head of the Bureau of Prisons. Literally. Now, you file a couple of those and they start making your life hell. For real. They start making your life hell. He's already been deemed frivolous. In other words, they've said the lawsuits that you're filing are not, they don't hold merit. So you're going to have to pay for every time you file from this point forward. And apparently where he's at, it's about $650. In the feds, I think it's 490 is what the filings used to be. And it's one of the things that guys call home about. I need $490 so that I can file this motion because they changed the law on felon in possession of a firearm. It's how inmates hustle people to get money sent in so that they can buy dope. Honestly, you hear it all the time. Guys that have never filed anything have got 6 or 7 different people sending them money so that they can file their appeal. But yeah, this is the situation that this guy finds himself in. His typewriter's been taken away from him. He's been deemed a guy that files frivolous lawsuits. So from this point forward, he has to pay for every single one of them. You also have to go, and even though it is legal work, you have to go and show it to a cop before you seal it. And when you seal it, you're supposed to be able to lick that thing right there in front of them and actually seal it. Because legal mail, they're not supposed to read. In theory, they're not supposed to read your legal mail. They're reading his legal mail. I promise you, they're reading his legal mail. They're making photocopies of it. It's frustrating because I've seen how an inmate can get buried. I've seen how they can make a dude go away and make it so that that dude isn't going to get any love or any action when it comes to trying to talk to people on the street, trying to get people out to visit, trying to get anything done. This guy is very likely trapped in a pond. Now, this could just be the greatest con. He could just be running a really, really long con, because I'm not alone. And as I start to deep dive this, I am running into other people that are doing the same thing. There are people that are looking into this. There's also a group of people that will hunt you down to talk you out of doing it. Right? I've never had anybody call me on Diddy and say, hey, let me tell you where you're making some mistakes on this. Let me tell you why P. Diddy isn't as guilty as you think he is. I've never had somebody call me and say, let me explain to you why Jay-Z didn't do this. But I have had so many people send me emails and reach out to me to tell me that this guy's a scam artist and here's why. And the first letter I got, there's just no way to do this any justice. I will just tell you this. The person that wrote the letter was trying to sound like they were of a different race, I promise you. But they were using a lot of terms really improperly, the way that nobody would ever do it if they had ever been locked up. But this person was trying to talk me into the fact that Derek Lee Cardello-Smith is a rapist and a piece of crap. But the terms that he used in describing him were how you would describe inside a homeboy, a tight homeboy. It was a bizarre letter. But I've had a lot of weird things happen with people trying to reach out on this one. And if you happen to disagree with me and you think that Derek Lee Cardello-Smith is 100% a rapist and a con man, I understand exactly why you say that. I really do. And I understand that at this exact moment, there is no reason or no proof that he is other than that. But there needs to be somebody that can say he's a con man, 100%. This guy's a rapist. He did this to these people. That needs to happen, because we know of the amount of corruption now that is taking place. We're seeing in 2025 just how viciously awful all of this has been. The number of victims that reported the crimes, allegedly, of the people in question right now, the people that have lawsuits pending all over the United States, people like Diddy, all of the different individuals who claim that they went and saw police officers and filled out reports. Now, I'll tell you what I've come to believe, folks. I'm never going to, my mailman said, I'm never going to assume again, simply because somebody is incarcerated, that it's a lock, right? If I followed the trial, if I looked at it or whatever, but just because someone is in prison does not mean that somebody committed the crime that they did. Not claiming I was innocent, right? Never been that guy, I promise. But on the 1 in 100 chance, on the 1 in 1,000 chance that this guy gets up every single morning in a prison full of people who think he's a rapist, somebody needs to take a much closer look at this, and I'm going to. It's probably going to mean that I do less videos than I had been doing, and it may require that I do a little traveling. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd like to meet him. I'd like to go out there and look him in the eye. I'm not sure whether or not that's realistic, but I'm looking into that. I'd also like to meet a couple of other characters in this, although it is not an easy thing to do. Tracking these people down, period, is difficult. Even getting the offices, right? You try calling the offices of any of these people. Just getting somebody that'll pick up the phone is a challenge. Amazingly, though, all of the people listed, yeah, you can actually you can determine that all of these people are real. There's no lie to any of that. And there's enough details that you can verify, right? Like, did somebody actually take their own life right before this guy's trial, which caused him to then change his plea? Now, maybe those two are unrelated, right? Maybe that person unalived himself. It had nothing to do with anything, and then the guy decides to change his plea. Not exactly sure. 25 days sober today. And that, folks, it is a huge deal. It is a huge deal. And so sweet to wake up today not hungover and regretting and sad. Thank God. Seriously. You know what, Valerie? That is the coolest thing ever. And I hope you journaled to beat hell when you woke up this morning. If you didn't, you should go in there and you should journal about what it felt like to wake up without a hangover. It's always nice to be able to go back to those. Like if you have another night like you did last night where you're like, you know what, I just want to make this go away. Maybe I'll go read my journal entry on what it felt like to wake up without that habit. And go and read that. There's so much power. Miss All Smokes, good to see you. There's so much power in journaling the emotions when they come up. Honestly, it's a huge, huge deal. Please take the time to write down. And can we get can I get a tray in the chat if you're as proud of Valerie as I am? Let's see if we can get one of these things up there. Because that is about as cool as it gets, man. Thank you. Yes, I journaled for like an hour. That's what I'm talking about. Rebuilding neural pathways with much better science, right? Getting in there and actually laying down some new cable in the brain. The malfunctioning reward center of the brain starts to do things like pride, right? Pride is an absolutely great emotion. Don't let Shakespeare fool you. Pride is an excellent emotion when it's deserved. If you're, if you're proud of something that you earned, and trust and believe that 25 days sober, which is, you realize you only got to go another week, and then we start talking about months instead of days, and you start counting months. Actually, probably for the first 8 to 12 weeks, it's still fun to count weeks, but yeah, AVAC, I can do that. I can do that. I'll put updates up. I will do that. That's fair. That's fair. I won't go more than a day. I promise. And I will probably be putting some stuff up so that people can get together and hang out. We'll run some reruns, but it does give people an opportunity to pop up in the chat and hang out with one another. This is important to me, folks. And I like doing YouTube, right? I really do. I like sitting in front of the camera. I like hanging out with you guys. But most of what I do, I mean, let's be honest, most of what we do is reporting, and it's interesting. This is a human, though, right? And if this human story isn't BS, then it's 128 other men, right? Black men who are locked up. And don't get it messed up. I'm no Pollyanna, right? These guys didn't get rounded up in church or at universities. If this guy's story is true, these guys were probably slinging rock, right? Or they were pimps. They didn't come up with money to invest off the top of their head and will invest it in cash with some dude who's going to hand you paperwork. Okay, that money gets earned on the street. That's not how normal people invest. Normal people invest with lawyers. You sit down, there's a deal drawn out, right? Nobody brings a suitcase full of cash or a duffel bag full of hundreds. But it makes you wonder if that's how all of those early Diddy parties got going, right? Were they funding this before Diageo and all of the big money started to come? I said way back in the beginning when we first started talking about this, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Right? Where did the money come from? Where did the money come from before there was a Diageo? It's an interesting question. It really is. And this may be one of the answers. And we also know, once again, from Gene Deal, who in the scope of things, when you look at the Diddyverse, let's be really honest, the Diddyverse is a scary place now. It really is. Nobody's talking about anybody who's a victim anymore. I mean, the victims, the original victims, the people that filed lawsuits, the people that have been afraid to file lawsuits, right? The 63%, statistically speaking, who are never going to tell anybody. Because that's the numbers, right? 63% of those people keep their mouth shut till they die. So we stopped talking about all of that. And now we trash content creators, right? And the content creator is the story. So if we trash this person this week, we trash that person next week, you could do 15 to 20 live streams in a row where you talk about how much you hate somebody. And if you're getting 500 or 600 people to show up and, toss $50 or $100 in super chats every hour to also echo the hate, I guess it pays, right? What do they say? Traumatized to monetize or something like that. I think we're missing the mark right? I also think that it's going to clean itself up a little bit because we're going to see a trial coming here pretty soon, and when it does, it's going to change, right? Tippy Belva, I love that. I really do. I love that. Welcome to the boat. So this is forget ever getting any truth. Still waiting on the Epstein victims. Yeah, and I understand your sentiment. I really do. And you know, when people get these stories are beat to death kind of a thing, it always makes me think of Epstein. I feel like we took our eyes off the ball on the Epstein case, right? Collectively, as a planet, we took our eye off the Epstein case. When they came out with that crock of crap where they said the camera's down, the 2 employees fell asleep, he was on suicide watch, right? But, oh, the whole story's crap. There are hundreds of cameras in a federal prison. Hundreds. All you got to prove is that nobody walked to this guy's cell over the course of 6 hours. You could show us every other camera to do that in a day. We weren't there to call him on it. There weren't people. The day that happened, right? The day that happened, there needed to be some people that researched enough to say, what does suicide watch really work like in the feds? But there wasn't a lot of that happened. On suicide watch in the feds, you wouldn't have a bunk. You wouldn't have a door. There'd be a big piece of glass for a door. And there'd be an inmate watching you. They do them in 4-hour shifts through a program that they call My Brother's Keeper. I have been on suicide watch in the feds. And I have also been paid to be one of the My Brother's Keeper and sit on the other side. I know every protocol for what suicide watch looks like on the feds. That man wasn't on suicide watch. He was in a shoe, just like everybody else. The amount of clothing that he had in his cell, you're not allowed clothing when you're on suicide watch. You wear a dress. And if he was on an observation cell, because now that's their new story, is that, no, he was just under observation. If he was under observation, there would have been a dude sitting on the other side of the glass observing him. That's what observation is. They had to blow through all the protocols and do all of these things to make that go away. And there wasn't anybody there.
Mute it for a second.
Oh, 1 second. So it's but it's one of those things where we took our eyes off the ball collectively as a planet. And I don't believe at that time we were quite ready as a society to hold people accountable, if that makes sense. Honestly. I mean, all of the different stuff that the world will say, it was the biggest secret in Hollywood, right? Everybody knew this. Everybody knew this. So this is the casting couch, all of these things, they've been going on now since Hollywood started. It's been going on in the music industry even worse since the music industry started, right? Everybody knows that the music industry is the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. The newest the newest acts that come in and made all the money, they would take that to keep everybody else that wasn't really producing anymore happy enough to continue, right? Suicide watch, yes. The Ninja Turtle suit. Rosalind Duke! There she is, folks. That's who I was talking about earlier. It's an honor, Rosalind. Rosalind did, if you get over and get a chance to look at some of the videos that she's done on this, her research is solid. And her research isn't proving my point. Her research definitely shows that this guy has conned a lot. And some of it is a bit, the mentioning of Tupac Shakur, the murder of Tupac, is wildly sensational, right? And it makes you wonder, because I don't buy that. I don't buy that Tupac was, that there were 2 officers from Michigan that went out to California to get that done. I'm sorry, I don't. I have a theory on that, and when we get closer to the case, I'll tell you what my theory is. But it sure as hell ain't that. And I think that this is a guy that's running cons. This is a guy that's lying to as many people as he can in hopes of at least getting eyes on the story. And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe this dude's just a con man. But I'm gonna find out. Yeah, we're gonna find out. I promise you that. I am absolutely gonna find out. A Rip Curl Readiness. He says, I'm okay, but I wish God would ease up a bit and send some good news and happiness my way for a little bit. You know, Rip, send me an email, tommyscoville@gmail.com. We'll see if we can't work on... and some thoughts and prayers for my friend Rip. But please do send me an email, Rip. Reach out to me. And I'll email you back. Cray! Chow Yun Smut! Good to see you. Alrighty, folks. I'm going to wrap this one up. I have a person I'm getting on the phone with in 20 minutes who's researching this case as well. And they're going to tell me why Derek Lee Cardello-Smith is a con man. And you know what? I'm going to listen to everybody. There are going to be people that are certainly going to try to convince me that everything this dude's doing is a con. And I'm pretty convinced that it is. But if you're sitting in a lockup for kidnapping and raping 3 women, by the way, the logistics of pulling off and raping 3 different women, honestly, without getting caught after the first one or the second one or the third one. Kidnapping's normally not a crime that people do prolifically. Normally you don't run into a guy who's a serial kidnapper, because if you don't kill the person that you kidnap, you get caught after the first one. It's an odd thing to have 3 of. It really is. And I'm not making that up. You can look through it. Statistically, that's a very weird crime to have a spree of. Most people who kidnap, unless they're killing the people, right? If they're letting them go, they get caught pretty quickly. It's so much of it is bizarre. Alrighty, peeps. Between now and the next time I see you, do me a favor. Work on a little harm reduction, right? Cut back on whatever you're doing. If you got a problem with drinking and you're doing 30 shots a day, shoot for 28 between now and the next time we see you. Get it down to 28 a day. A little harm reduction will go a really long way. If you happen to be smoking illegal stuff in your state, do a little research. You'd be shocked how many states you can smoke it in illegal. Seriously, don't get arrested for something you don't need to. I am Tommy Scoville. I will see you on the next one, folks. God bless. And just because someone says it, don't make it true.